afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to resume this teaching, and I think the verses that I have stopped before yesterday was explanation of how important the devotion and the faith. And so I continue from this topic. Actually, I don't remember exactly where did I stop. But anyhow, I'm sure it was the topic of faith and the devotion. Now, it says here means the words of a perfect teacher by Patrul Rinpoche, which we are discussing now. Your interest in the Dharma is the basis of what you will achieve. So depending on whether your degree of interest is superior or inferior, you will become a superior, middling, or inferior practitioner. And if you are not at all interested in the Dhamma, there will be no result at all. So which means the basis of all the noble qualities is based on your interest in the Dhamma. Interest in the sense of three aspects. One, that is the interest with the study, and second is reflection or contemplation. So that is interest as well. And then the meditation is the best interest, because the meditation helps you to bring the actual Dharma into the practice, whereas the study and contemplation do not help you to bring Dharma into the practice. And you don't need to be worried about what type of you are practitioner, whether you are superior type of a practitioner or inferior type of practitioner. It's very much depends on your diligence and hard work and the practice itself. As it says, the Dharma is nobody's the property. It belongs to whoever has the most endeavor. So therefore, our Lord Buddha himself obtained the teachings at the price of hundreds of hardship. Therefore, we need patience. We have to be patient with our practice. Patience with the listening, with the contemplation, and with the meditation. Now, it continues here. Some parts I just leave it like that, because you can read a book, commentary, whatever. So there you can find out. And also, it's not that important to be explained, because these are all understandable. Now I jump to the next, which means I picked up the important parts to avoid wasting time. It says here, listen to the teaching, therefore, with the great effort, ignoring heat, cold, and all others. The tendency of consciousness to get engrossed in the objects of the six senses is the root of all samsara, the hallucinations. The samsaras, the hallucinations, and the source of all sufferings. Now, in Sutrayana teaching, as well as in the Vajrayana teaching, the methods and the training changes based on what is your capacity. Your capacity is here the major consideration. Buddha always designs teachings, and he performs the teachings according to your capabilities and your ability. The ability of the mind, ability of the wisdom, ability of the power of wisdom. So therefore, there are all kinds of teachings, but basically the purpose of application is the same, but the way of teaching goes different way, because all are for the purpose of the benefiting sentient beings. Therefore, now our consideration is the tendency of consciousness to get engrossed in the objects of the six senses. That is a distraction with the sense of our eyes, and the sense of our ears, and the sense of our noses, etc. And the mind. So distraction disturbs our practice, and is the root of the samsara, is the source of all sufferings. Therefore, in the same way, whenever you are listening to the Dhamma, teaching, meditating, or practicing, it is important not to follow tendencies from the past, not to entertain emotions about the future, and not to let your present thoughts get distracted by anything around you. It is simple, but we have to pay attention seriously. In the meditation of Mahamudra, the methods the given that ask you avoid not to follow the tendencies from the past, or not to the present and the future. So that means to try to tame our mind, because the problem with our practice is not taming our mind, being too wild our mind. And you call sometimes a monkey mind, but I don't understand what does it mean, because a monkey is much more softer and gentle than our mind, because can train monkey easily, not our mind at all. So don't blame on monkey. Monkey sometimes naughty, but sometimes better than human, because the monkey has understanding but not human. Monkey has the satisfaction but not human. So therefore, I don't accept such term, so-called monkey mind. So far, monkey mind is okay, but human mind is more dangerous. To me, yes. So therefore, don't use such term, because it seems to me that you abuse or look down on monkey. So therefore, these words should not be used. So better say human mind, untamed human mind, which is simple and understandable, rather than monkey mind. Maybe monkeys in the Swayambhu is naughty, but not every places. Anyway, Problem is our mind that is never tamed or calmed. Why not calmed our mind? Because of the distraction. The distraction arises from our habitual tendencies, from the beginningless of this secular existence, and therefore, for that reason, we need thorough and precise practice. In order to begin proper practice or training our mind, and we need to be begun with the study and the contemplation and the meditation. Only these three factors are going to help us or help our mind to be calmed. Meditation is, in general term, what does it mean? What does meditation mean? The meditation means the familiarity, and we are familiarized with the something change or the methods. To bring ourselves into the right path, then one should train our mind very well before entering into real Dhamma. Because the Dhamma, I have explained you a few days back, what does Dhamma mean in the Sanskrit? There are few the different meanings, but the important meaning with the Dhamma is to be changed, to change fundamentally. We tend to practice, and we tend to do practice with the body, speech, mind, but all are for temporary purpose. You are unable to expand your motivation and your intention. Your intention is very limited. Your motivation is very limited because your practice is just for temporary benefit. When you are sick, then you pray to Medicine Buddha. And when you are unhealthy, and you do practice. And when you start your trouble, and you start practice of Tara, saying that please let me go through and be pleasant journey. And when you do business, and you pray to Tara, and saying that please let me be a successful business. Never and ever you have prayed to Tara for the sake of eliminating negative emotion, eliminating the powerful, the underlying ignorance, the mind of the duality, etc. So your prayer is very limited, and your practice is very limited because it is just for temporary, not for absolute purpose. So absolute purpose in the sense of that you look far, and we have to make a far-reaching benefit, which is to completely uproot the powerful ignorance. So it's not easy. So easier to say than the done. So therefore, we read the teachings and listen teachings, but we lost the purpose. Why we do listen teaching, why we do meditate, and why we do contemplate. You have lost the purpose of doing all these training. Therefore, Bhattacharya Rinpoche insisting or repeatedly saying that destruction is the prime source of the needless sufferings. For that reason only, that's the only reason that we are doing meditation. Doing meditation for calm abiding, vipassana, whatsoever. All methods, but one purpose. And it says here, Tome Rinpoche, your past joys and sorrows are like drawings on water. No trace of them remains, don't run after them. But should they come to mind, reflect on how success and failure come and go. Is there anything you can trust beside Dhamma? Which means your past joys and sorrows are like a drawing on water. You can draw on water, but at the same time it disappears. It doesn't stay there. Yet you can draw on the water, right? So likewise, our thoughts, thought stream, let go, but don't hold on it. Holding on to it is we call the problematic. Is a problematic. So therefore, it says here, joys and the sorrows are like a drawing in water. So we shouldn't or we must not trace of them remains. Then you will be happy. These teachings are never blame on thoughts, isn't it? And some of you might be attended or participated in the teaching of Mahamudra. The main topic in the teaching of Mahamudra is to handling your thoughts and handling your emotion rather than combat or destroying the thoughts or eliminating thoughts. In Sutrayana, yes, precisely explained how to, then they didn't explain or they didn't taught us how to work with our emotion, how to deal with our emotion. But in the Sutrayana, precisely telling us try to eliminate them or to combat them and dispel them. Whereas these teachings, it's a simple, open and a precise and a very straightforward. So it says here, should deal with your emotion and the thoughts. So this teaching is very much related to the teaching of Mahamudra and Mahāti. Topic is nothing, but the name of the teaching is nothing. So importantly, we have to follow the explanation in these teachings. So it says here, as I said, don't run after them and don't trust of them remains. Not trace of them remains. So the thoughts is simple. We can have thoughts. We can have emotion. That doesn't matter. Emotion does not disturb our mental stability at all, to me. And the thoughts don't disturb our mental stability. The disturbances are if you trace after them, if you run after them, and then you take the action endlessly doing something one after another. That's our problem. So in the teaching of these, let you feel relaxed rather than tighten your mind or feel and let you feel much relaxed. And it explains very precisely and openly and easily how to work with your thoughts. So they don't blame on the thoughts, but we blame thoughts, right? We are the one who blame on our thoughts. Thoughts of anger is bad, thoughts of jealousy is bad, thoughts of whatever. So are bad. So you keep blaming on the thoughts. Whereas these teachings, they respect the thoughts. And they say the thoughts are needed, but depends how you work with the thoughts. That's the key issue here. So we don't need to be scared with the thoughts. We don't need to be scared with the emotion. Without emotion, you are no human. Without emotion, you are dead body. But so therefore we need emotion and we need thought. And the essential way explaining in the teaching of a Mahamudra, so all these, the profound teachings of a Mahamudra based on thoughts and emotion. So without the thoughts and the emotion, one cannot achieve the practice of the meditation to be recognize your true nature of mind in the teaching of Mahamudra. So how do we realize our true nature of mind? Based on what phenomena? Based on what factor? That is the only thought. So thought is appreciable. Thoughts are the needed for the practitioners. And thoughts are needed. So here only instruction that is very beneficial for the practitioners are: your past joys and the sorrows are like a drawing on water. No trace of them remain. Don't run after them. That's a simple, isn't it? Just simple. You do what you like. Doesn't matter. You do what you like. And you can think what you like. You can plan what you like. You can reflect what you like. That doesn't matter. But the only instruction here is that don't hold on. Just let it go, like drawing on water. Then the next it says, your future projects and the plans are like nets cast in the desert. They all never bring what you want. They limit your desire and the expectation. But should they come to mind, think how uncertain it is when you will die. Your future projects and plans are like a net cast in the desert, pointless, meaningless. And your expectation, your desire, if your desire, expectation is limitless, then the problem started. So therefore, we must make limitation, or we must limit our desire and our expectation. Teaching never said that you should not hold expectation or desire. You can have it. You can enjoy with the expectation. You can enjoy with the desire. And you can enjoy with your hopes. And any kinds of feelings, they don't reject. But they ask to make limit. And we experience, if we limit, then the problem lessen. If our expectation is in the state of a limitation, then our problem is also in the state of a limitation. Why our suffering and the pains are limitless? Because of the cause of these are limitless. So the relationship between the cause and the result is undeniable. It's a truthful. It bases on reality. So therefore, if none of us want suffering and the pain, then one should avoid or make limit the cause of that suffering. That's what it explains here. And we should think uncertain of the death, uncertainty of the death. So death can come at any time. So if you consider yourself, or if we consider ourselves as a real good Dharma practitioner, then as the Kadamba masters saying, the knowledge of the uncertainty of death is the most important practice among all entire teaching of Kadamba. Therefore, those great masters in the Kadamba lineage masters, in a remote area or solitude retreat, so they draw the letter on the walls saying that don't be distracted, the death comes at any time. So that's somehow can see every time when they wake up in the morning, every time they walk around in the cave, or every time they do something, they can still see these instructions on the wall and everywhere. So this is a kind of a reminding you how our precious life is precious, yet it's fragile. At any time the death can come. We cannot run away from the death. So the only option is we should accept the death. But then the question is, how do you accept the death? That's the question. So question come from your mind and ask yourself. Don't ask others. And we scared of death. And so those great masters don't scared of death. So what does make differences between? So we have to consider. And we have to think of this. Then it says here, have you got time for anything other than Dhamma? The answer is no, right? And your present activity is like a job in a dark dream. Since all such efforts is pointless, cast it aside. Consider even your honest earnings without any attachment. Activities are meaningless. All are just like a dream. In the dream, we experience joy, sorrow, pleasant and unpleasant. We can dream all of these, yet they are not existed inherently in the dream itself. Therefore, it says here, since all such efforts is pointless from the Dhamma point of view, so cast it aside. Even to consider even your honest earnings without any attachment, activities are also meaningless. And during the posture meditation, learn to control in this way all thoughts arising from the three poisons, until the thoughts and the perceptions arise as a Dhammakaya. This is indispensable. Remembering it whenever you need it, do not let deluded thoughts be free. This is essential teaching towards the end of these verses. Sometimes we misunderstood the teaching of like a Mahamudra or Mahāti or whatsoever, because there are two states. One that is we call the state of the meditation. The other one is the post meditation. In Tibetan called Nyamsha, that is the meditation, and the Jetop, that is the post meditation. Now here, Homi Rinpoche importantly instructed us that the post meditation, the attitude or activities during the post meditation is more important, more crucial than the actual meditation. Because as a beginner, we have the very heavy or profound habitual tendencies. So you do meditation about 1 hour, sometimes a half an hour, maximum 2 hours. After that, if you say, I'm still doing 3 hours meditation, 3 hours, 4 hours, I don't trust. Maybe you are doing meditation with all kinds of imagination. Yet you sit your body firmly in the form of a meditation, but the mental is still distracted. So therefore, in the teachings instructed us to do short, but repeat it. Do short means like 5 minutes to 10 minutes, maximum 1 hour. But after that, I don't think you can afford to carry on for long time. So it instructs us to make a pause and to get out of the meditation and to do your thing, like a walking outside or talking with your friends or eating something or drinking something. Do it, but at the same time must not distract it. I should combine the experience of the meditation and one make sure that how much you could make the development the meditation is, because the examination for meditation is with the post meditation. Because we have to examine our thoughts and the emotion and the negative thoughts. I give you a simple example. If you say, or if I say, if I'm a short-tempered man, I'm very short-tempered, I didn't mean that I'm short-tempered, but I'm just giving an example. Don't be scared of me. Every human being is short-tempered anyway. Sometimes with the reason, sometimes stupidly. Anyway, just giving an example. If I'm short-tempered, then I feel unpleasant with my short temper, with my anger. Then I will try to bring the power of anger down. Then I have to rely on meditation only, because nobody can do that. If I go to a psychiatrist, so he or she will talk so many things, and sometimes my anger goes worse. And those psychiatrists are really hopeless, because they themselves are also having this problem. So how could you help? Because if you have the same problem, so you can never help them. Anyway, so the best psychiatrist is to meditate with the profound and reliable instruction. You follow the instructions of the meditation, and the meditators give you proper teachings on how to control or how to work with your thoughts, how to work with your anger, how to work with your temper. So then how do I know that I really do or I really did good meditation? Because the only time you will know is the time of post-meditation. So when you walk outside and see different kind of people and meet up all kinds of situations, that makes your mind restless. But now, after a certain degree of meditation that you have been made, now the examination that you feel, oh yes, much better than before. You would say that, and you should say that, and you should feel that also. So then you would say, oh, I'm much better. Are you sure? Yes. Why? Because I did good meditation. So meditation helps me to tame my mind, to tame my emotion, and to calm my mind. And that means a certain effort that you have made with the meditation that helps some changes, but not fundamentally, because the habitual tendencies are still there. So therefore, we have to continue meditation for the purpose of bringing down the power of anger. But this is the process, the general process, how to work out negative thoughts and a negative affliction. But whereas in the teachings of Mahamudra and Mahaati, they don't go through these slow steps at all. So they give you very straightforward teaching to tackle the root of the problem, not the anger itself, the root of the anger. So what is the root of the anger? That is the failure of recognition, the trueness of mind, or the failure of the recognition of the essence of the anger. So there's the most skillful means in the teachings of Mahamudra, and especially in the high tantric or the teachings. So once you are able to catch yourself, or so to speak, or once you are able to catch the essence of the anger, essence of the emotion, essence of the affliction, then you don't need to work with the anger itself. You don't need to work with the emotion itself. Because the emotion as an emotion that you vision, and as an emotion that you grasp, or as an emotion that you cling, because that you are failed to be recognized the essence of the emotion itself. So that's the only teaching performed in the Mahamudra and the Mahaati. And that's why they don't say, oh, should get rid of emotion, should get rid of anger, should get rid of stupidity. They are more respectful towards the emotions. So therefore in the teaching of a Jut, the cutting through, explains, and they explain so that must not get rid of anger, must not get off the emotion itself, or the mind of anger, mind of jealousy, etc. Because they convince us, so without these, the base of the emotions, one cannot achieve the realization. So here it says, that's why here it says, that until the thoughts and the perceptions arise as a Dhammakaya. Until means actually the thoughts and the perceptions are never ever separate from the Dhammakaya or Dhammadhatu. But the only problem is that we are failed to understand it or to recognize it or to identify as it is. But the thoughts and the emotion and the perceptions are always inseparable from the Dhammadhatu, the Dhammakaya. When we explain about the three kayas, Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya, and the Nimanakaya, Dhammakaya is our fundamental phenomena. Because of the Dhammakaya, everything is functioning. Because of the Dhammakaya, there are all kinds of notions, the samsara, nirvana, right and the wrong, virtues, non-virtues, the positivity, negativity. All these notions based on Dhammakaya. So if Dhammakaya is baseless, then all these notions will be gone. We needed these notions because based on these notions we are practicing and we are handling the situation and we are abandoning the negativities and we are adopting the positivities and we value the positivities and we devalue the negativities are all functions based on the true understanding of Dhammakaya. So just only the different matter is that we are failed or not yet to be recognized as it is, whereas the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they have been achieved this knowledge and understanding. Therefore, we find a big gap between Buddha and the sentient beings. But initially, basically, all sentient beings are Buddha. Initially, undeniably, and truly, because of the essence of our mind is already Buddha. Always a Buddha in the past, now, and the future. Never disturbed, never polluted, and never deluded. Based on this recognition, and I can be proud of that. So I convinced myself, okay, now I must enter into the Dhamma to make sure that I will get rid of all these. And if I'm unable to get rid of these strains and the needless strains and the pain and the suffering miseries, then I cannot benefit sentient beings. It's not simple benefiting sentient beings. In order to benefit sentient beings, so individuals should be get ready how to benefit sentient beings. So that's very much depends or based on the knowledge and the experience. So therefore, through this meditation and the post-meditation, we need it. Don't say that in 24 hours is my meditation. You are bluffing. That's your bluff. You cannot. So the meditation and the post-meditation, when you say post-meditation, doesn't mean this is your holiday. Okay? So the post-meditation is a holiday, yet with the sense of a meditation itself must not distract your mind at all while you are walking outside or talking with the people. So these two should be combined always. But apparently, you can see two different aspects. Because of meditation, which means you be in the meditation. So we tend to meditate. So you are reluctantly doing something else, because I understand that when you do meditation, you ask your friends or yourself, shut the door, shut the window, put the big notice outside, say that please don't disturb me, right? At the same time, I'm doing meditation, please don't disturb me. If somebody come to knock your door, then what you will be. And you will open the door or window, say that I'm doing meditation. And then this person repeatedly knock your door, then you will get angry. So this is a complicated meditation. So meditation should be free from all kinds of factors. The external factors, that is someone knocking your door or window. Internal factor, that is our emotion and the thoughts, should be free, must not touch or depend on all these factors. If you are reluctantly depend on something, which means you are not good meditator. So the good meditation or the good meditator or not good meditator or not good meditation is something that how do you work with the meditation and the situation. So it's not duration, nothing to do with the duration, nothing to do with the time, and nothing to do with the proceed towards the meditation. It's something to do with your capacity and your wise and your wisdom. And it's something to do how to handle the situation of the meditation. Therefore, it says until means until you realize. It says here until the thoughts and the perceptions arise as a Dhammakaya, which means they are arise within the Dhammakaya. Because initially, as I said, fundamentally never separate our thoughts and perception with the Dhammakaya. But the only problem is our thoughts, perception never ever arises as a Dhammakaya because our deluded mind. So it has something to do with our mental projection. It has something to do with our negative habitual tendency. We have a full of negativities, full of illusion, full of delusion, because the mind is not open up as yet. Still very heavy karmic power, karmic force. So one should get rid of this, then we have to be very diligent with the meditation. Meditation is not for the purpose of eliminating your thoughts. The meditation is for the purpose of bringing your thoughts into your practice and a meditation. The meditation is for the purpose of mingling or make inseparability the thoughts and your true nature of mind. So the meditation itself is your mind, everyday mind. It's nothing special lesson. If you consider meditation is something special lesson, then you are wrong. You are doing meditation on wrong basis. So from there, your meditation will never be able to achieve it. I'm guaranteed. I'm not talking about meditation of Mahamudra or Mahati. In general in Buddhism, particularly if you want to be really like a specialist with the meditation, so it's a very interesting work, entire methods with the meditation. So there is no posture, no meditation or post-meditation. Our everyday life is within the meditation. If you apply mindfulness and cautiousness and carefulness, and if your mind is always in the state of awareness, then there is no disturbance. Disturbances are still surrounding, still there, but the good thing is they don't disturb you. That's enough, isn't it? Our scary, our anxious, our anxiety is a disturbance. You feel disgusting with the thoughts because you say, thoughts disturbing me. You are stupid. Thoughts never disturb you because the disturbance is holding on to the thoughts, holding on to the perception. That's the source of the problem, and that's the source of the confusion. If you are careful, if you are wise, if you are very aware of things, then the perceptions and the thoughts are just your true nature of mind. It arises from your true nature and it goes back to your own nature or to your own origin. So where is the disturbance? Who did disturb you? Which disturbed you? Where did disturb you? You can't find the disturbances. So disturbances is your own responsibility. So that means you are mishandling the situation. So if you are careful and if you are smart, if you are clever, as much as you are clever with your own anger and the thoughts. If you are that much wise and clever with your meditation, I'm sure you can be able to achieve the meditation and be able to get rid of these confusions. So anyhow, now I'm going to cut the long explanation into short. And it says continuously, about the past and the future will never come to fruition and are only a distraction. Give them up altogether. Be mindful and listen with the attention and the care. Do not focus too intently, picking out individual words and points. Each time you seize one item, you forget the one before and will never get to understand the whole. Too much concentration also makes you sleepy. Instead, to keep a balance between tight and loose. So these are all general instructions how to make a good meditation. Feeling sleepy during the meditation is very common. Nothing wrong. But still, because if you sleep too much, then you cannot achieve the meditation, right? So they don't blame your sleep. You can sleep, but don't sleep during the meditation. It says that. So don't sleep while you are chanting. Don't sleep while you are praying. Don't sleep while you are meditating. Then eventually the benefit is you can bring the sleepness into the practice. Then the luminosity of the dream arises from there. Then you will be a much more enjoyable person with the dream land and the dream world and the dream phenomena. Everybody is too excited because I heard some of you searching the internet and a website, what is the luminosity? And they instruct you do this and that things. But I suggest you don't do that. That's really stupid things. Luminosity is always there. You don't need to search from the website. And you don't need to search the luminosity from the market. They can tell you all kinds of things because they want to make you happy. They want to entertain you. But that is not the entertainment that directly come from the luminosity, that the human make you luminous, your mind. So that luminosity does not last long anyway. So therefore, don't confuse yourself. So here it says that, therefore here it says, make a balance or keep a balance between a tight and loose. Then slowly, if you keep a balance, then the feeling of the sleepy will be transformed into the meditation. That's how in six Naropa doctrines, the practice of the dream yoga come from this. This is nothing special subject. This is a very general. If you start right now how to train the sleepy state, then through the training of making balance between tight and loose, or too much concentration whatsoever, if you are able to make everything is balanced, then the tightness or sleepiness, all kinds of the factors you can make as a part of meditation. Therefore, with that, so it explains the 5 wrong ways of remembering. Avoid when you listen to teaching, avoid remembering the words but forgetting the meaning. That's wrong. Or remembering the meaning but forgetting the words. That's another wrong. Number 2. Number 3, avoid remembering both but with incorrect understanding. Number 4. Number 3, right? Number 3. Number 4, remembering them out of order. And the number 5, remembering them incorrectly. Don't need to explain further because it's simple to understand. Now what to do? Which means what is the suitable attitude towards the practice? Then it says here, the conduct to be adopted while listening to teaching is explained as the 4 metaphors, the 6, the transcendent perfections, and other modes of conduct. Now 4 metaphors. It says here, noble one, you should think of yourself as someone who is sick. Simple, right? Everybody understand that. This is common teachings in the sutra. Noble one, you should think of yourself as someone who is sick, of the Dhamma as the remedy, of your spiritual friend as a skillful doctor, and of diligent practice as the way to recovery. So this is simple. When performed teachings, and both the speaker and the listener should remain in this attitude, then the teaching will benefit you. Because it says here, we are sick from beginningless of time in this immense ocean of suffering that is called samsara or cyclic existence. We have been tormented by the illness of the 3 poisons and their fruit, the 3 kinds of suffering. For that reason, we should consider as myself patient, the Dhamma is the remedy, and the spiritual friend is a doctor, and the diligent practice is as a way to recovery. Following the teacher without doing what he says or she says is like disobeying your doctor, which leaves them no chance of treating your illness. Not taking the medicine of the Dhamma, that is to say, not putting it into practice. I don't need to explain. While you are listening this, I'm sure you understand correctly and clearly. So listen it, I read slowly, as slow as possible. Not taking the medicine of the Dhamma, that is to say, not putting it into practice, is like having innumerable medicines or innumerable medications and prescriptions besides your bed and a pillow. They don't say pillow, but I said it. Because some patients are very smart, so they hide medications under pillow. Why? They want to take still the unhealthy food. So, but never touching them, that will never cure your disease. So these days, people say, full of optimism, how? Lama, look on me with the compassion. That's it, right? So when you are sick, then you say, oh Lama, please let me recover. When you fall down, you say, oh Lama. So it seems that Lama push you down. But when you are happy, you never say Lama, because you forgot him or her. So thinking that even if they have done many terrible things, they will never have to endure the consequences. They reckon that their teacher, in his or her compassion, will toss them up into the heavenly realms as if he were throwing up the pebble. But when we speak of the teacher holding us with his compassion, what he really means is that he has lovingly accepted us as disciples, and that he gives us his profound instructions, opens our eyes to what to do and what not to do, and shows us the way to liberation taught by the conquerors, which means Buddhas. What greater compassion could there be? The question is there. Then the answer. Then it says, it is up to us whether or not we take advantage of this compassion and actually pursue the path of liberation. So teaching itself nothing to do with us, and even there are hundreds and thousands of Buddhas and great masters around us, nothing to do with us if we fundamentally do not make change. So if you stay with your own master for 24 hours. Wipe his face, right? And rub the shoulder, and what? Then you wash his or her clothes, and be as an attendant. But if you don't practice, you don't get anything from the master. It's just an entertainment between you and the teacher, that's it. So something that you have to do is your own responsibility. So the intention, the motivation is something to do with here. So therefore, only the way of Dhamma. If you make it application, if you apply the teachings within, so only that way you are able to solve your problems. So that's why here says, now that we have this free and well-endowed human birth, now that we know what we should and should not do, our decision at this juncture, when we have the freedom to choose, marks the turning point which will determine our fate for better or worse. Far into the future, it is crucial that we choose between samsara and the nirvana, once and for all, and put the instructions of our teacher into practice. So our choice. You want to go up or you want to go down? That's up to us. Because the path is shown already, the instruction is given already there. We have books and the texts, the teachings everywhere. Particularly nowadays, you can get the teachings everywhere. So we have no problem with the teachings, but we have a problem with the practice. This is very obvious, and we do not deny, right? So everywhere, if a master gives teachings, they are full of people, a crowd, 10,000, 1,000, or 100,000. But when they all come out of the teaching or seminar, they are all same. With the anger, with the jealousy, with the negative afflictions, everything is still there. So which means teaching is nothing. You keep listening teaching, and you become addicted to teaching. You feel that I cannot survive without listening something. But the topic is always the same. Don't do bad things, do good things, isn't it? Calm your mind, tame your mind, don't be angry. Emotion is no good. It will disturb your practice. That's the same topic, but a different style. So you are excited with the different style, but not you are excited with the teaching itself, because you hear every day same topic and the same lesson. But you remain in the same situation, change, or you don't change, at least or the slightest degree. So the choice is with us. In fact, the turning point, the only time that you really can direct yourself up or down, as if string a horse with the reins, is tight now while you are still alive. So as a human beings, your positive actions are more powerful than those of other kinds of beings. This gives you on the one hand an opportunity Okay, I think I should stop here. Time is up. So we'll continue tomorrow. But I just want to let you know that I cannot go through the words by words, because which takes time and consumes a lot of time. So therefore I cannot go this way. So I try to make a short form. I try to summarize from the teaching as much as I can, which is suitable to all of us, and not making the waste our time. And then you get the important points also, that you are not missing the points in this teaching. There's no point to go word by word anyway, unless we do this for another 3 months. So in 10 days we cannot finish this. So the making summarize or make it short, the form is better. Thank you so much for your patience.